Walruses are jumping off cliffs to their deaths. Yes, because of climate change. In fact, this story came out this morning. This story came out yesterday morning, and it's already been debunked for the most part. Why? Because it's just probably not true. It's probably a lie. At the very least, what we can say is, according to certain accusations from real scientists, a video put out by Netflix with millions of views a couple weeks ago claiming that climate change was causing walruses to kill themselves was either completely irresponsible and the fault of the filmmakers or an outright lie meant to deceive you. Now, I can't prove, ill intent, but I don't trust these filmmakers. Look, you want to get a smash hit documentary, you want to get millions of views, you want to go on speaking tours. It is so easy to edit things to frame them a certain way and trick people. You find some heartwarming footage. I shouldn't say heartwarming, but heart-wrenching. Something that makes you go, oh my God, what is this? And then you say, climate change. And they go, oh! And then everyone says, wow, so powerful. And you go around speaking and protesting, and everyone listens. So here we have a story. Check this out. From The Hill, they say, the new Netflix series Our Planet documents the devastation wrought by humans on animals and their habitats. It's heartbreaking. In fact, some scenes are so wrenching that Netflix last week tweeted a list of timestamps for scenes that animal lovers may want to skip. One of those scenes is the second episode of Frozen World. It shows Pacific walruses, one after another, tumbling off 250-foot-high cliffs to their deaths. As a scientist who works to protect walruses and other species from the ravages of climate change, I dreaded watching the scene with every bone in my body, but I did. And I want everyone to watch it, especially animal lovers. First, I'd like to point out, I believe climate change is a real problem. I'm going to stand next to the scientific community on this one, okay? If the scientists are coming out and saying climate change is a problem, you got no debate from me. I'm not a scientist, or at least not in that capacity. So I'm going to have to go ahead and trust the authorities. The authorities are sometimes wrong, but I'm not an expert. What do you want me to do? I'm not going to trust some random people on the internet, but I am willing to read evidence and question and say, I lean towards the scientific community because they're the experts. It's the best I can do. That being said, the scientific community, at least some in the community, are now giving statements saying this is a lie. Let's read on, and then I'll show you. So I'll show you some of these lies. There's a difference between covering your eyes during the ending of Old Yeller and fast forwarding through this walrus footage. In the former, you're saving yourself from the unnecessary heartbreak of a fictional yellow Labrador mix's death. In the latter, you're turning a blind eye to the very real suffering that human-caused climate change is inflicting on walruses. Walrus eye? Unlike Old Yeller, the walruses need help and they need it now. Yep. Okay, here's the clip. Let's read this. What they say. The first major documentation of warming-related walrus deaths was in 2007, when 3,000 Pacific walruses were trampled to death on Russian shores after receding summer sea ice drove them to haul out en masse. En masse? Do they mean en masse, like en? Copy editor. Since then, massive walrus haulouts have been documented year after year when sea ice disappears. In August 2017, thousands of Pacific walruses were forced ashore near Point Lay, Alaska. So let me stress, okay, I said it was debunked, but that was probably wrong of me. It's not necessarily debunked, it's completely challenged, because it seems there's a likelier reason for why the walruses are falling off cliffs. I'm not going to show you, so this is a shot just before this walrus right here tumbles to his death. They show the whole thing. It's pretty crappy. It's pretty gruesome. In reality, what they're now claiming is that walruses are skittish, and they were flying drones around the walruses, which now some anthropologists, not anthropologists, what's the animal science, whatever, animal scientists are saying, you probably freaked them out because they're extremely skittish, they can smell humans, cameras, they can hear them, and drones would freak them out and cause them to climb to try and get to safety and then fall to their deaths. They're blaming the filmmakers. The filmmakers are saying, no way, that's BS. But apparently now it's being pointed out that the footage of the falling was spliced together from different shores. So it sounds deceptive. Listen to this. Well, actually, it's probably not going to be loud enough, but I'll play it anyway.
There's probably 200 or 300 dead walrus on like a half-mile stretch of beach here. They're exhausted because they're having to swim 100 miles now to get to food, and then coming back here because it's the only place to sleep. They used to sleep on the ice, dive down, eat food, sleep on the ice, easy. And now they're swimming 100 miles, coming to this place, climbing cliffs, and they're just exhausted and falling down and either being killed falling or just crushing each other because there's several thousand crammed onto little tiny bits of beaches.
So he's saying that the walruses have to swim hundreds of miles for food and then come back to sleep. Well, that's apparently being disputed. So check this out. Ryan Moe, he's a meteorologist PhD. It doesn't seem to be a partisan as far as I can tell. He says the gruesome Our Planet walrus scene was directly caused by climate change, just like the photograph of the starving polar bear, according to activist groups like WWF. Fundraising off the visuals. Is this just artistic license or fraud/hoax? The starving polar bear photo by National Geographic was misleading, but justified as a picture that foretold the future and served its purpose of raising awareness about climate change. Recently, WWF has been credibly accused of funding paramilitary squads by BuzzFeed News, no less. Okay? Now, the latest, because this tweet from him, this is from the 15th. Well, he tweeted this horrifying update. It's alleged that the Our Planet film crew's drones and presence caused the walrus stampede off the cliff, as they are easily spooked. There are significant questions about the provenance and credibility of the claims behind the Our Planet walrus scene. There are also serious ethical issues here, sickening. Overhead planes, drones, and other human disturbances should be kept to a minimum to avoid spooking the walruses. This should be well known. The Atlantic researched these claims more than a week ago, but the rest of the media might as well be in the film as clapping seals so obedient. Yes, because the Atlantic brought this up on the 8th, that perhaps the walruses were falling. Perhaps they were climbing because they were scared of the humans, and perhaps they were falling because they were scared of the humans. But other scientists have pointed out the walruses may be scuttling up the hillside and falling because polar bears are nearby. Check this out. This story is from news.com.au from yesterday. I do not want this footage to play, so do not autoplay. Allegations, you can stop now. Allegations Netflix film crew lied about what caused mass walrus deaths. We know, as Ryan just stated, that disheveled-looking malnourished polar bear was misleading. It was likely, my understanding, an older polar bear who was just probably old and dying. They try to make you think, oh no, they have to swim so far. Listen, you want to have a real conversation about climate change? Sure. You want to manipulate people and lie about what's actually happening? I'm not going to stand by it. I think climate change is a real problem. I do. I'm like I said, I side with the scientists on this one. But you being a manipulative liar is a problem too. From the moment Netflix aired the mass suicide of walruses in a David Attenborough documentary, there has been controversy about the shocking scene. The disturbing vision was filmed as part of the new nature series Our Planet and left many viewers horrified. The scene shows dozens of walruses tumbling down a steep cliff in the Bering Strait, landing on the jagged rocks below. And there's one of the shots of, I don't want to show the video, you get the picture. The scene, the film crew were seen watching on in horror as the violent events played out before them. There was an immediate controversy about the graphic nature of the footage and whether or not it should have been included in the documentary. Now the focus has turned to the cause of the mass death. The documentary blamed the horrific event on climate change, with Attenborough saying melting sea ice drove the animals to the edge of the cliff. Walrus' eyesight out of the water is poor, but they can sense the others down below. As they get hungry, they need to return to the sea. In their desperation to do so, hundreds fall from heights they should have never scaled. However, many people have since refuted that climate change was to blame, suggesting polar bears, drones, or the crew could be responsible. Zoologist Susan Crockford has claimed walruses dying from falling from cliffs is not a phenomenon and suggested polar bears likely caused the event. The lie being told by Attenborough and the film crew is that 200 to 300 walruses fell during the time they were filming, while in fact they filmed only a few. Polar bears were responsible for the majority of the carcasses shown on the beach below the cliff, Ms. Crockford wrote on her website. This is, of course, in addition to the bigger lie that lack of sea ice is to blame for walrus herds being on shore in the first place. Who are you going to trust, a zoologist or a documentary film crew who showed up and started filming walruses, even though a meteorologist and other PhD, they're saying, listen, we know that walruses are easily spooked, you can freak them out. She claims the walruses were herded and chased over the cliff by polar bears, and the crew used deceptive editing to leave that part out. There was an incident in Russia in 2017 where polar bears were reported to have spooked a herd of walruses, causing them to fall off a cliff to their deaths. Interesting. So they were referring to 2007. I wonder if the narrative is getting mixed up here. Miss Crockford believes this is the event that was filmed by the documentary crew. The film crew have steadfastly refused to reveal precisely where and when they filmed the walrus deaths shown in the film in relation to the walrus deaths initiated by polar bears reported by the Siberian Times in the fall of 2017. The show's producer, Sophie Lanphier, refuted these claims on Twitter, saying bears were not driving them off the cliffs during the filmmaking. There have also been accusations that the film crew blocked the walrus' exit and spooked the animals with their drones or other equipment. We'll come back to that. A U.S. fisheries spokesman said walruses can flee en masse, you see, that's how you spell en masse, in response to the sight, sound, and especially odors from humans and machines. Ms. Lanphier defended how the film crew acted around the animals. When approaching the walruses, we made sure we were downwind from them and that we could not be seen. We only stood up when it was safe to do so and when we weren't at risk of scaring any walruses. Well, let's go back to Ryan here. He's got this. It says a May 2017 report from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service found that the retreat of sea ice from the Arctic does indeed lead walruses to engage in mass haulouts onto crowded beaches more often. And at those crowded haulouts, the walruses are indeed easily spooked, with an increase in deadly disturbance events through tramplings, especially of young calves, and much more common than cliff falls, according to that report. Now, this is getting a bit more nuanced, and I can absolutely respect this. Subject matter experts suggested to Live Science that falling events typically don't involve the walruses scaling cliffs, as the documentary indicated. Rather, the events happen as walruses go up shallow slopes on the cliff's far sides. Once up top, the creatures can sometimes stampede off these cliffs, and if a passing plane, polar bear, boat, or other unfamiliar freaky thing scares them. Climate change does seem to have made these sort of events more common. However, in Alaska, these mass fallings appear to local observers to have declined in recent years thanks to human efforts to manage the environments of the haulouts. Reductions in overhead planes and other human disturbances appear to have prevented at least some of the deaths. Coastal management efforts led by local native groups have also been effective to some degree. Now, conclusion. The audio I played, he says they're climbing up these cliffs and then it's because they have to swim so far. That's not what this PhD researcher is saying. That's not what this other zoologist is claiming. If we want to be nuanced, it sounds like, according to this guy who's a meteorologist PhD, he's challenging the narrative because there have been lies to manipulate you before. But he actually is presenting the nuance. Climate change apparently is causing mass haulouts of these walruses, but they actually are disputing what the claims in this documentary are. I don't trust these documentary filmmakers. I don't. You know, I don't know the full history, but apparently, like, Disney filmed something about lemmings way back in the day and, like, shoved them off the cliff with brooms and then made people believe they were jumping to their deaths in mass suicide. They made a video game, Lemmings, which is apparently inspired by this. The point is, don't believe everything you see from these documentaries. I don't like most documentaries because they always present some kind of framed narrative, and I understand, like, that's what documentaries do for the most part. But I have to question their expertise and whether or not they're correct in this. People are calling it out as fake news, but a lot of people are commenting. Look, since April 9th, it's got 2.4 million views, and it's questionable at the very least. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not saying it's true or it isn't, but I am presenting you've got some nuance here. They're obviously defending it. The media is claiming it's true, but you have actual scientists saying, hold your horses. And this is the kind of hysteria that causes people to do stupid things, okay? If you are satisfied with the fake solution, you will not find the real one. Stick around, I got another video coming up for you at 4 p.m. on my main channel later today. I will see you then.